3C, we're resuming our study of the Supplementary Estimates B for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2026. I want to thank Mr. Jacques and his team for showing up the last moment. Unfortunately, the attendees we had planned for today, Mr. Guzman from the Defense Agency has taken ill, but Secretary Fuhr has refused to show up unless he attends together. Yes, he did. Unless he can attend with Mr. Guzman. Unfortunately as well, Minister Lightbound will not show up either as requested, so we have filled in that date on the 9th with Transport Safety Board, which is under the OGGO umbrella, and Public Service Pension Investment Board, which is also under the OGGO umbrella. We haven't seen either of them for probably 5 years in committee, so we're inviting them for a briefing. Yes, and then we'll go to Mr. Jacques, Mrs. Block, and then Ms. Khalid.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this is a point of order, but I would certainly like to register my concern with the fact that witnesses have been called to appear before committee, have agreed to come to committee, and then either don't comply with the motion that's been put forward, which I believe was the case with both Mr. Guzman and Mr. Fuhr. We had asked for them to appear separately. They decided to determine the terms under which they would come to committee, and now at the last minute are not appearing. And the fact that we have a member of parliament who's serving as a minister of state refusing to come unless he's coming with another witness. Can you please let us as a committee know what recourse we have for this? This is becoming a pattern of behavior with some of the ministers. As you've mentioned, now Minister Lightbound is refusing to attend committee to defend the estimates that have been put forward. And this is very concerning to this side of the table for sure, that we have a planned agenda and we can't actually go about doing the work that we as parliamentarians need to because of the refusal of witnesses to appear.
Certainly, and I give credit to our clerk. He's been doing yeoman's work trying to arrange to have them show, repeated requests to have them appear. Mr. Guzman, I understand, is sick today, which does happen, but Mr. Fuhr not coming today despite the motion. I have no explanation, but it is, as Chair, I am disappointed that we cannot get ministers here either to defend their estimates, despite great flexibility offered long in advance, and the same with Mr. Fuhr. Mr. Guzman, I'm going to assume will show up. We can extend an invite, and of course, if he refuses, we can go to a summons, but I'm going to assume he'll show up. As for Secretary Fuhr, it's the will of the committee of how they attend, but I'm a bit taken back that he won't show up unless they are together. They've made it very clear in writings to us that they won't appear unless they can appear together for 1 hour only. And I'm not sure why, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Really briefly, with a follow-up to that,
Yeah,
I would encourage you as the chair to reissue that invitation to recall both of them to appear as per the motion that was passed by this entire committee, to appear before this committee to talk about the Defense Investment Agency, this new appointment, and I guess if there is still a refusal to comply with the motion that was passed at committee, then I would suggest we do need to move to summonsing Mr. Guzman and recalling the Minister of State to appear.
Ms. Gaudreau?
C'est la même chose pour moi, Monsieur le Président.
I share the same concerns. A health issue is legitimate. I hope he's doing okay. But really, I'm not interested in doing a summoning. So we still have a few meetings. There are people who are asking themselves questions who are worried. So please, I hope they respect what the committee decided upon.
Ms. Khalid, and then I had Mr. Patzer.
Thank you, Chair. Just seeking some clarity. When you say that the minister refused to attend today, what does that mean?
I'm not sure how to explain that. He will not
No, I mean,
attend
like, is it
without Mr. Guzman.
Is that a refusal to attend before the committee, or is that to say, look, Mr. Guzman has had emergency surgery that it was scheduled for today, and we'll wait until he comes back? I mean, when we say that there is a straight out refusal, for me, like the I guess the implications that I'm getting from yourself and your the opposite side of the table is that the minister is saying, I'm not coming. But I don't think that that's the case. So I do want to know, were there alternative dates that were offered by the minister?
No. The message was Mr. Guzman had to be away today, and I accept that for the reason offered. And then Minister Fuhr, no, I will not attend. So the invite's been there for a while. They stated he would be here, and then Mr. Guzman's unavailable, so Mr. Fuhr has made himself unavailable.
Chair, I do believe it's precedence that ministers appear with their officials for any additional information, any supplementary information that may be required in any meeting. I don't think that ministers tend to attend on their own, and I find it a little strange that we are holding a man to account who is dealing with surgery today, and then having to balance his ministry, his job, and then being accused of refusing to appear, which I don't think is accurate. Obviously, they had scheduled in a time for them to come, and I'm pretty sure that the Secretary of State would be more than willing to attend. Obviously, we want to make sure that that his officials are able to attend with him, and if his official has had a medical emergency, then I think that we as a committee should be a little bit more forthcoming in terms of rescheduling a date. We don't know what the recovery process is going to be like for Mr. Guzman.
Sure, I'll just address it just really quickly.
I'm still not.
I know, but we're not going to filibuster
cut me off,
here.
Chair. It's a little bit disrespectful the way you treat me in this committee.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me.
No.
Let me,
you know what? All yours, Chair. Go ahead.
Colleagues, first of all, Ms. Rochford, I'm speaking, so I appreciate everyone not chirping in. You are repeating the fact. A couple things. Mr. Guzman is not an official, like a deputy minister. Ministers who have shown up without their deputy minister and others. Minister Fuhr actually showed up in defense without the defense committee without Mr. Guzman in tow. So apparently he can show up to one committee, but not us. But we will re-extend invitations to try and get them both here. And Mr. Patzer, and then Ms. Jansen, and perhaps we can get to our meeting. Oh, and then Ms. Sutz. Oops.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, if Mr. Guzman had a medical emergency, then obviously first off, I would like to wish him well and hope that he has a speedy recovery. But if this was not a medical emergency, if he had a planned surgery date, I mean, I think it would have been nice for the committee to have that knowledge, I guess, in advance. So maybe we could have arranged for Mr. Guzman to appear before his surgery, because to what Ms. Khalid said, we do not know what the recovery timeline and process will be for this. I do find it a little bit odd that she all of a sudden is the one with all the information about Mr. Guzman's schedule, but yet the committee has not been afforded that same luxury. I will also note that the motion of which this committee passed was passed on October 9th. I know we passed it slightly before Mr. Guzman was officially began his role, but we're now into December. He had just about a month and a half to be able to get his calendar in order, and I would think that discussing his mandate or his goals for the Defense Investment Agency would have been appropriate, especially because he is on the taxpayer for $900,000 or up to $900,000. And if this is the way that we are going to be treated as a committee, that is not a good start. So, yeah, I just want to register and the motion does not stipulate that they have to appear together. Mr. Fear should be appearing. It is shameful that he has decided to duck this committee. Same with Mr. Lightbound.
Okay, I have Ms. Jansen, Ms. Suds. Colleagues, we will re-extend invites to both of them. So we ask that we're not repeating what has been said, but acknowledge that we will re-invite them and would like to get to Mr. Jacques and his team shortly. Ms. Jansen, go ahead, then Ms. Suds.
I know I'm new here to this committee, but I have to say it's beginning to feel a bit like a coordinated effort to keep Canadians in the dark while billions of dollars are being committed behind closed doors. I mean, if the people entrusted with these responsibilities believe that they can avoid scrutiny or refuse lawful orders, blocking all sorts of information, blocking the PBO's information, dodging the committees, as we see, and yet they still claim to be stewards of the public money. I think they've misunderstood the job. So I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if this government continues to treat us as an inconvenience rather than an institution that's supposed to safeguard the public trust, Canadians will eventually draw their own conclusions about what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Ms. Suds, please, and then we'll try and get Mr. Jacques and his team.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, I find this conversation, frankly, just completely unnecessary. The clerk is aware of the reason that Mr. Guzman could not join us today. Very valid reason, of which, if any one of us was in those circumstances, we would not be able to appear. So factually, I think we should all wish him a speedy recovery and re-invite him as soon as he is able to join us. The motion as it was presented was for the Minister, the Secretary of State, to join along with Minister Guzman. From my understanding, there's a ton of value of having them both here together. The shared knowledge between them, I think, is important. So there's synergy in that, and I think, candidly, that's why we put them both in the motion. So, I take issue with any sort of insinuation that the minister's refusing to be here. He simply has said he would come with Mr. Guzman, as was requested. So I just think we need to choose our words wisely, and they will be here. There's no doubt in my mind, and certainly wish Mr. Guzman well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jacques and team, thanks for your patience. We will turn the floor over to you for an opening statement. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are here to serve. Monsieur le Président, membres du comité.
Mr. Chair and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the invitation to appear before you today. We are pleased to be here to discuss our report on the Supplementary Estimates B 2025-2026, which was published on November 19th, 2025. I am joined by my colleagues, Mark Mahabir, Govinda Bernier, Regine Cleofa, and Mark Creighton. The Government Supplementary Estimates B for 2025-2026 outline an additional $10.7 billion in budgetary authorities. Major areas of planned spending include healthcare, Indigenous-related programs and claims, defense, and personnel. The single largest voted expenditure in these supplementary estimates is $1.6 billion to Health Canada to support access to dental services under the Canadian Dental Health Plan. Canadian Dental Care Plan.
On to any questions you may have regarding our estimates analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Jacques. And again, thank you for your team for your flexibility as always. We'll start with Mrs. Block for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. In your report regarding supplementary estimates B, you make a statement that I found rather intriguing, and I'm just going to repeat it back to you and then ask some questions about it. You state on page 4 of your report that the supplementary estimates for the fall supply period ending December 10th have historically followed the tabling of the public accounts, which are the audited consolidated financial statements for the previous fiscal year. And you note that this year the public accounts of Canada were tabled on the same day as supplementary estimates B. You also go on to note that over the last 5 years, the supplementary estimates have followed on or before the day of public accounts, and 6 times in the last 10 years. And that appears to be a bit of a pattern to me. And I also note that you've stated that on financial reporting, timely publication of the public accounts would provide parliamentarians with more time for ex post financial scrutiny and better information to assess the government's budget plans and estimates. Again, this is rather concerning, and I just want to give you the opportunity to provide us with a bit more information around the timing of when these different documents are tabled and the impact that this has on parliamentarians to do their work.
Excuse me. Thank you for the question. So it wasn't only supplementary estimates B and the public accounts tabled that very busy first week of November. We also had the budget, and we also had the departmental results reports. So in the office, we lost count at around 10,000 pages worth of documentation that was released by the government that same week. And needless to say, even with large language models, it's very challenging to go through all of it and review all of it in a very timely way for us who have graduate degrees specifically focused in this area, let alone parliamentarians who are very busy and talented in their own ways, but might not have a CPA. One of the recommendations we made in the past, and one of the recommendations from this that's actually been issued by this committee, is that the public accounts, the current legislative date for the tabling of the public accounts is effectively the end of December. One of the recommendations is that date should be moved up on a legislative basis. And the primary motivation around that is to ensure that the audited financial statements for the government are available to parliamentarians when they are considering supplementary estimates B, so an additional $10.7 billion worth of spending, which includes a fair amount of spending that lapsed in the previous fiscal year, which now the government's coming back in supplementary estimates B and asking for this funding again. In addition to that, I would also mention given the changing context around the timing of the budget, it would also be very beneficial for parliamentarians to have those public accounts in advance. So they're well placed in advance of the tabling of the budget itself in the fall, so they have a good understanding of what happened in the previous fiscal year, where things stand, and they're well situated when the government tables its budget.
Thank you for that. It is one thing to understand all of the information that is being presented to you as a parliamentarian. It's another thing when it's coming at you fast and furious and not in a timely way. I did go and take a look at the reporting cycle for government expenditures, knowing full well that the government has changed when they are tabling the budget. Is there any impact on the rest of the cycle with regards to the tabling of a budget in November that we need to be mindful of as parliamentarians in an effort to be able to scrutinize the government's spending?
I think so based on what the government's published, it's very much the changes continue to be a work in progress. The most evident change, which I would say is a positive change, which should be helpful to parliamentarians, is with an earlier tabling of the budget, parliamentarians will see that in the main estimates document, which is linked to Appropriation Bill 1 and 2, they will see budget measures that the government has indicated that they will be tagging those items from the budget. So there'll be much stronger linkages and cohesion between the government's principal policy document, which is the budget, and what parliamentarians actually vote on, which are the appropriation bills. Going back to my comment with respect to a work in progress, I think there are additional things the government could consider doing, certainly to render the cycle more accessible for parliamentarians. The public accounts and tabling them earlier would be one of those things. There also might be other changes that would render the process more amenable to parliamentarians having a better sense of what's going on, because at the end of the day, no money can be spent or revenue raised without the approval of Parliament.
Thanks, Mr. Jacques. Mr. Gasparo, please, for 6.
Thank you, and thanks for attending, Mr. Jacques, again, and thank you all for joining. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the largest item that's being discussed here, and you raised it earlier, which is the Canadian Dental Care Plan. Obviously, it impacts a lot of people in my riding of Eglinton Lawrence, and I know it impacts a lot of folks riding here, people who use it. So from your perspective, how does early and adequate investments in programs like this contribute to better long-term outcomes and help reduce pressure on other parts of the healthcare system?
That's a really good question, and I would more broadly, I'd link it back to work that the International Monetary Fund actually did recently and published recently this fall with respect to looking at capital investments or investments that various governments should be making or could be making, which of course links back to ongoing discussions around the operating capital budget definition. But one of the things the IMF... But one of the things, it's interesting because one of the things the IMF identified as areas for investment, they used the word, their word, not mine, was including healthcare. So including healthcare and including things like education, which is outside of the definition we're currently using at the federal level. And the argument from the IMF, which I think broadly speaking we would agree with, it's focused on the human capital side. So to the extent to which you have an efficient allocation of resources on the healthcare side, including dental care, as well as supports for education, you end up with a population that is in better shape to work and is more productive overall, which of course is better for the economy. Productivity is good for everybody.
I'll come back to the IMF if I have some time. Just staying on the Canadian Dental Care Plan for a moment. The $1.6 billion, $1.6 billion that is being requested. Does this amount reflect programmatic cost growth or uptake being higher than forecasted, or is the government simply accelerating the implementation of the program?
It was increased program uptake from potential beneficiaries that caused the increase in demand for the Canadian Dental Care Plan. There was also pent-up demand is how Health Canada characterized it, where there's just people who needed more treatment than they had anticipated when they were sketching things out back for the main estimates.
Guys, Mike is quiet.
But it's basically there's been increased uptake from Canadians for the program. Okay, great. Chair, how much time do I have? Okay, great. So now we can go back to our favorite topic, Mr. Jacques, which is operating capital and infrastructure. So I just want to read you a quote from the managing director of the IMF. And she says, and I quote, both Germany and Canada recognize that in this very testing time, they need to use their fiscal space. The two countries are in better fiscal positions than their group of 7 peers. Would you agree with that quote from the managing director of the IMF?
I would agree with the quote. I would agree with the facts in the statement with respect to Canada and Germany's position vis-a-vis the G7. It's not our place to offer recommendations or observations with respect to federal policy.
Absolutely, but I just wanted to make sure that your view was in line, or you accepted the managing director's position that Canada's fiscal space relative to G7 is at the top of the heap.
So, two things. One, in terms of Canada and Germany's position vis-a-vis the G7 as measured by the debt to GDP ratio, Canada has one of the lowest debt to GDP ratios at the federal level in comparison to the rest of the G7. I think and again, a point that I've made in the past, and I think I was here last week, is it's up to the government to establish what their fiscal anchors are going to be and how they're going to manage. It's up to Parliament and the public to have a good understanding of what that is and to be able to weigh in to the extent that they feel comfortable with it. And the movement previously with the debt to GDP ratio, which was declining over the medium term, that was the previous government's fiscal anchor, and the previous governments and the previous governments. In that situation, over time, there was additional fiscal space that opened up. So effectively, money was being set aside for a rainy day fund in anticipation of an economic shock or when you need it. In the current environment, that's not happening, which means that the next time something happens and the government needs to move on it, in all likelihood, they'll need to borrow additional money. So it just leaves them with less. It's a different approach, and with it carries its own risks. And the point that we've made in our Budget 2025 issues note is parliamentarians and the public should have a discussion around that. And in other jurisdictions like the UK and Australia, there is a legislative requirement to actually, once a new government is elected, to actually set out, here are our fiscal anchors. This is why we have these fiscal anchors. And Parliament is required to debate it and actually vote on it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ms. Goudreau for 6, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Let's talk about the last meeting. We were missing documents. We were told the documents were coming. You received 10,000 pages of information for your work. No. Excuse me. That's the number of pages in English that the Canadian government published on their website the first week of November. That includes the budget, public accounts, supplementary estimates, etc. And after our last meeting, have you received the documents you need to do your work? In order to evaluate the austerity plan, no. And what documents do you need? Are there numbers? Are there articles? What do you need? We are here to help you. Clearly, we want to know, and we also want you to do your job properly. What do you need? We asked for key data. We asked for a list of programs that will be impacted. The names of full-time equivalents, the decrease in each budget, and impact on Canadian services, because for each program, for the accountants, it's a number, but for Canadians all over the country, there are programs and services. Dental care. Is that expense? Because it is an expense. Is it considered an investment? According to the government, no. with their framework, I believe it counts as operational spending. Are there other changes like that? Because we've been asking what is really an investment. Is tax credit, for instance, does that count as an investment? Good question. Depends on the kind of tax credit. As mentioned in our analysis, the government decided to include some tax credits as investments. In the other jurisdictions, they haven't included the same tax credits. But I don't think there was a change. I think the last time I appeared before this committee, I explained that there's no perfect way of taking things into account. But that said, the government needs to make a link between each dollar spent and capital creation in the economy. Regardless of, be it the federal government, the provinces, municipalities, Indigenous communities, it's more difficult with some kinds of incentives. So it's a point of view. So we're expecting it to make more money for the economy, but we don't have the concrete numbers. So that's why I'm asking, is it investment? Because in terms of capital, we know the increase in value of a building, for instance. We don't want to bias people and say, oh, we're making investments. That's it. And as I mentioned about 10 minutes ago, with the IMF, there is a good justification in saying that making sure people are in good health, they're educated, they can find a job, they can be trained. That's a real capital fund. It's difficult to measure that. But conceptually, there is a justification for that. And that's the IMF, not me. What impact can that have on our credit rating? It's important to respect international standards. We can play around a bit with the numbers, but at the end of the day, well, we'll read the results by the Auditor General. So what can we expect from these new accounting measures? It would be important to have someone to evaluate this new way of doing things in an independent capacity so that there's not too much flexibility for the government to change the definition of capital investment from one year to the next without justification. It's important for parliamentarians and the public to be able to follow those changes. Question inaudible for the interpreter. There are many people all over Canada and multiple organizations. For us, it's important that the people who create those frameworks and those who evaluate it at the end of the day are independent from those who need to put those in place. So you can do that. We can, perhaps the Auditor General, external non-governmental organizations. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Patzer for 5, please.
Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Jacques. Earlier today, you were before a Senate committee, and you actually said that you were having some issues getting information on the Defense Investment Agency. I'm just wondering if you wanted to elaborate on that, what kind of information you were looking for and what rationale they've given you as to why they are not giving you the information.
Thank you for the question. News travels fast. So we did send in an information request to the new agency at the beginning of November. And specifically, it was in response to questions that we received at the Senate National Finance Committee around the specific agency and concerns that members of the Senate had with respect to transparency because of the administrative framework within which these agencies are being established, which is distinct from a standard government department. At the time, my response was, it might be different, but we'll see if the organization is willing to share information. I would say we did publish a report this morning on Build Canada Homes, where the powers of information access we have that we utilize on behalf of parliamentarians worked really well. And that new organization shared information with us. We were able to analyze it, understand it, and we're able to publish that for the committee. In the case of the Defense Investment Agency, unfortunately, it hasn't been the case. So we asked for basic tombstone information regarding what's your budget, how many people work there, and could you break things out by standard object, which is in internal government accounting parlance. You need to know this. You need to know the different categories. So personnel, professional services, utilities, information, and so what have you. We didn't receive it. Initially, they reached out. They asked for an extension. We spoke with them on Friday, and they indicated we were unlikely to receive it any time in the near future, and that the request was sitting on the deputy's desk, and they didn't know when the deputy would sign it. At that point, I reached the conclusion that if the data exists, the department agrees that we have the legislative right of access. We're requesting the information to analyze on behalf of a Senate committee, consistent with our mandate, and there's no explanation from the government department regarding why we're not receiving it or when they will provide it to us. At that point, we concluded that it was a deemed refusal. So the government department in question, on our website, we indicated that the information is simply, we closed the case and indicated the information is simply not going to be provided.
Was that the Department of National Defense, or is that the Department of Public Service and Procurement?
It's PSPC.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Within your review that you had for military procurement, you talked about $476 million for the Future Fighter Capability Program. The government seems to be changing their minds on whether they're going to go with the F-35 or if they're going to or continue with the F-35 or if they're going to switch to the Saab Gripen. What would happen if, with that $476 million, if the government continues to delay or just all of a sudden change their minds and decide to go to a different fighter jet? What would happen to that $476 million? Would that be sunk cost? Would that be, like, what would happen to that?
At this point, we haven't evaluated that specific allocation in detail. And until we do, anything I could offer would be speculative at this point.
Okay. I just want to pick up on a thread that was earlier by Mr. Gasparo there. One of your other reports talks about how our room to respond to whatever the next crisis might be has been severely hampered and limited when we look at what because the government's new fiscal anchor is a declining deficit to GDP. They've changed that definition, but we look at the long term, the deficit, the year-over-year deficits are not going to drop substantially to create that room. How concerning is that for Canadians?
I think it should be something that should seize the attention of all parliamentarians, and I guess by extension Canadians, which is why we included it in the report, to highlight it. Again, like as of September 18th in the House of Commons, the response from the Prime Minister in QP was there were 3 fiscal anchors. One of them included the declining debt to GDP ratio. And then as of November 4th, when the budget was tabled, that debt to GDP anchor was cut. From our perspective, there is substantially less room to maneuver than there was in the past. That isn't to say the government can't borrow additional money. So in comparison to other G7 countries, potentially less so in comparison to other advanced economies, but certainly in comparison to G7 countries, the federal government is in a relatively good fiscal position to go out and borrow additional money. It does mean that there is a change in how the federal budget and finances are managed, which happened with very limited amounts of discussion before that was put into place. The discussion is obviously happening now around the relative merits of the deficit to GDP ratio, the fact that it's declining.
I apologize, Mr. Jacques. We're past our time. I have to cut you off there. As much as I could listen to this all day, we'll now go to Ms. Setz, please, for 5.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you all for being here once again. I wanted to start out talking a bit about what I see here in Shared Services Canada. So I see Shared Services Canada is receiving $45 million for core IT services and $8.3 million to support Statistics Canada's cloud operations. And, you know, I would appreciate your reflections or input on these expenditures. From my viewpoint, these are really necessary expenditures as digital becomes the path forward, and expecting we need to do more of this. So your input as far as the validity or the importance of these expenditures.
Sure. I don't, with respect to the specific 45 million and the 8.3, I don't believe we highlighted it in our report. That said, I can't speak more broadly to the fact that there is, certainly on our end, we do use Statistics Canada services on a regular basis, and to the extent that it's easier to access those services, we're able to do higher quality work in a more timely way for committee. Also, on the other side, I also sit on the Statistics Canada's Council for Macroeconomic Advisors. I think that's what it's called. And in terms of managing the data and ensuring high quality data, these are investments that both reduce cost and also improve quality within Statistics Canada. Again, this is broadly speaking on these specific investments. I can't speak to them, but broadly speaking, I would agree with you. Again, it gets back to some of the questions that have been asked in the past around Budget 2025 and investments. So to the extent to which there's additional capital formation in the economy, and that's available to people, you're going to have higher productivity. That's the way that the equations work, and that's the way it's worked in the past. And additional money for StatCan in these specific areas should, as long as it's executed properly, should roll out in a similar way.
Thank you for that. And I think in the context of just like increasing cybersecurity concerns or the importance of ensuring we are secure, and digital government as Canadians, you know, rely on us and expect to receive services online when and how they choose. You know, I think these expenditures are certainly, you know, growing in criticality moving forward. There was my colleague has asked, I was curious around defense modernization and the commitments that we've made through NATO to reach our targets, and significant funding that we're seeing reflected here. Are you seeing us on a path to marry that vision?
Well, in terms of the threshold for NATO, 2%, based upon our forecast, the government seems to be on track for this year, certainly, to hit 2%. In terms of the 5%, it's less clear at this point. So we did send in an information request to National Defence to reconcile the information in the budget with additional information, additional confidential information National Defence has provided to us in the past around their spending plans, to have a sense of what is new and how close it puts us to the NATO 5%. We're still waiting on a response from National Defence at this point to clarify those aspects. But certainly we're further ahead on the NATO 2%. We're further ahead than we were last year.
Incredible. Thank you for that, and certainly good to hear that it's coming to fruition and is visible in your analysis. Maybe perhaps looking back at Shared Services Canada, as we think about moving forward and departments being able to leverage efficiencies, so looking at being able to centralize services within Shared Services Canada, be it cloud, be it cyber, et cetera. Are you seeing evidence that we are on track to meet our objectives as far as centralizing those services?
It's a very good question and not something that we've looked at, unfortunately.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Madame Gaudreau, please.
J'ai pas beaucoup de temps, mais ça va être...
I'll be quick. I'll come back to what we were talking about earlier. Organizations, banks, something like the Montreal Economic Institute. In their way of measuring accounts, have they converted or inserted that data into what they usually use? Have you done that? We have not. We were just speaking with StatsCan. StatsCan has national accounts. And in that context, there is an obligation for StatsCan to reconcile that. To reconcile the public accounts with national accounts. So there are two different ways of doing things. StatsCan is an independent body. StatsCan's responsibility is to manage a lot of data. Perhaps StatsCan would be well placed to take on more responsibility regarding the development of the way things are done and the evaluation after the fact. Or banks. Banks that are taking our numbers and are analyzing them differently. Yes, I think StatsCan is very well respected. Everyone trusts StatsCan. Last question. Last week in the House of Commons, I asked the former Quebec finance minister the following question. Why was he saying you couldn't compare Quebec, where you separate operational expenses and capital investments? And I said, how can you put everything in the same package? Not anymore for expenses in terms of dental care. And he said he did not agree with the PBO. That's the beauty of Canada. Everyone can have their own opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Ms. Jansen, and then we'll have Ms. Khalid, and then we'll have enough time to go to Mrs. Block, Mr. Gasparo, and finish up with Ms. Gaudreau, and then we will have a vote on the Sub-B estimates. Ms. Jansen?
Pauline is next, not me.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Jansen.
Mr. Jacques, I understand you want to analyze the $81.8 billion in new defense spending, but you didn't get the documents from the Defense Investment Agency. So I'm just wondering, from what you can tell, does the government actually have the information you've asked for?
Yes, that's in the case of the Defense Investment Agency with respect to their operating budget. Yes, they do have that information, which is why we updated things and said there was a deemed refusal to provide the information.
Okay. Thank you. Now, you wrote the minister on November 7 asking for the basic facts about this new Defense Investment Agency. So its budget, its spending plans, its staffing. They missed their deadline and didn't provide the documents. So what explanation did they give?
There wasn't an explanation. And that's why from our perspective, again, there's a lot of, when responding to an information request, we're pretty flexible. And we understand it's a new organization. So you can either, if you don't have everything, let us know. We'll take what you have. We understand the Defense Investment Agency is pretty busy and they have a lot going on. So give us what you have in the moment. Or if you're concerned about confidentiality, identify it as being confidential and we'll analyze it internally without publishing the information. There was no explanation. And that's why, and again, the request came from the Senate National Finance Committee as part of the discussions we had when testifying there. So from our perspective, we thought it was simply easier to let the Senate know, you asked about this, we tried, we can't get it. If you want to do something, best of luck to you.
In that case, should Canadians be concerned that we're creating a major defense agency or handing it huge responsibilities, and yet you can't even get basic budgeting or a staffing plan?
It's not about us. It's about parliamentarians. So to the extent to which my opinion is in this matter is largely irrelevant. It's whether parliamentarians feel comfortable with the information that is currently being provided to them to understand what the government has planned, and to the extent that parliamentarians feel well supported in acquitting themselves of their legislative responsibilities.
So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. Lacking this information actually hampers your ability to analyze the supplementary estimates because the DIA flows through them. Is that correct?
I don't think we saw anything in the supplementary estimates
Okay.
per se. I believe what they're spending, I don't believe they're in the supplementary estimates.
Okay. At the end of the day, it kind of feels to me like we keep being asked to approve billions of dollars without knowing what we're approving. And then, so kind of the idea of approve it now and you'll find out later. Is that the feeling you're getting as well?
I would say there's lots of information out there. And I go back to the 10,000 pages tabled by the government in English the first week of November. There's a lot of information. There are lots of things that are well explained, and there are some things that are less well explained, which is part of the reason why we exist, to render some of those fiscal questions more transparent. Nothing is ever going to be perfect, and the government has certainly demonstrated a willingness to change or streamline its budget process and its financial reporting process. And I'm certain that the next time you have either finance officials or Treasury Board officials before the committee, I'm positive they'll be open to your recommendations. I've never seen them appear at committee and tell a parliamentarian, no, we're not open to your suggestions, we're not going to improve things.
Okay, now you also asked for details on the government's comprehensive expenditure review back in November 5th. Have they given you a timeline on when you'll receive that?
No. The correspondence we have on our website from the Comptroller General indicates that some of the information may be available sometime in December. We have no clear timelines right now.
So we keep on voting on $1.4 billion in, for instance, $1.4 billion in personnel spending without a full analysis of department by department breakdowns. Would you agree that MPs are being asked to approve billions without the key information that's needed?
I would say, going back to the report that's on our website, we published this morning at 9 a.m. on Build Canada Homes. There was very good information provided by Build Canada Homes that allowed us to produce those calculations and that analysis. We tried to situate it in the context of the cuts in Budget 2025 that are planned, because it's important that parliamentarians have a sense of, if you're moving in one direction on housing, how does it interrelate to $60 billion worth of cuts and 40,000 layoffs? And we're able to do some of that, but certainly not all of it. And again, it goes back to parliamentarians, how comfortable they feel voting on it. We're simply bean counters. At least I'm a bean counter. My colleagues are far more exciting.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Ms. Rochford, please.
Oui, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Jacques, nice to see you again. I need to understand something. You've indicated that you received a lot of information at the same point in time, supplementary estimates, the budget, public accounts, and departmental results reports. Overall, you concur that it is a good shift to bring the budget to the fall versus the spring cycle that existed previously? That would be my first question, just a yes or a no, I guess, on that. Yes, you're good. Thank you. What I just want to be clear of as I leave this meeting is what you recommend in terms of the right cycle for all of these various elements as we move forward with the fall budget. So basically, in terms of supplementary estimates, public accounts, and departmental results report, how would you see the flow of these various elements coming forward as we move forward?
The easiest one to touch on is the one that we looked at it in the greatest detail, and that's the public accounts, so the government's audited financial statements. And the committee itself has offered a recommendation that the government table the public accounts no later than October 15th. We've indicated September 30th. We think 6 months, based upon what happens in other jurisdictions across the country and other countries around the world, is plenty of time. So moving those up to a fixed date before supplementary estimates B and also before the budget, I think would be worthwhile. And primarily, and for the other documents, it primarily is a question of, like from our perspective, the government does table, it produces a lot of information, and it makes that public in both of Canada's official languages. The challenge is the linkage between that information and the work of parliamentarians and what parliamentarians need to vote on. So coming out of the first week in November, there are 3 confidence votes around the budget itself. There are meetings happening elsewhere on the Hill with respect to the public accounts. There is going to be another confidence vote around the appropriation bill linked to supplementary estimates B. And it's just, it strikes me, and based upon the conversations with parliamentarians, it's just a lot to digest within a very short period of time. And moving some of those documents earlier and giving people more time to actually digest them would probably serve everyone very well. Because occasionally, I think, from my perspective, I'm left with the feeling that the government of Canada, the public service has done yeoman's service to produce very detailed public accounts, and at the same time, there isn't enough time for parliamentarians to actually go through and fully benefit from the work that the public service has done.
An unusual year this year, and hopefully we'll see changes moving forward. I just want to understand the issue of emergency management for First Nations. Your report notes that emergency management costs for First Nation communities have increased by about 34% annually since 2017. And with climate-related disasters, they're becoming more frequent, especially in rural and northern regions. Does the dollars that are requested here reflect a structural gap in funding, or is it simply meeting the real pressures that the communities are now facing?
I think it's just indeed a real pressure in the sense that there's been a significant increase in the number of wildfires and floods in particular. So that's what explains or drives mostly the increase in spending. Yeah.
Climate-related issues are at the heart of these increases.
Like I said, floods and wildfire, what causes them, I'm not a climate expert.
Yeah, sorry, just I'll put a fine point on that. We did publish a report about 6 weeks ago on the disaster financial assistance arrangements and the growth in compensation offered by the federal government to provinces related to disasters, and it was something that we specifically identified, both the growth in the frequency and severity of natural disasters, and I believe we clearly indicated in the report that it was linked to climate and climate change, among other factors.
Thank you. Just coming back to maybe a basic question for me, rural Canada. When you look at the estimates and all of the various programs that are highlighted, do you feel that in general they're directly supporting, I guess, the essential services that are required in rural in northern Canada? In other words, are the services reliable, accessible for smaller communities in general? Do you take a look at it from that perspective?
We have not. It's a very good question, though, and at INAN, one of the other committees with respect to Indigenous affairs, INAN recently passed a motion for us to undertake effectively a gap analysis for on-reserve services for First Nations policing and comparing it to policing in other rural communities. If it was the will of the committee, we could do something similar.
Okay, thank you.
That is our time. Would that be appropriate? Are you looking for that, but for rural communities as opposed to just First Nations?
Correct.
I think we all seem pretty comfortable if you could do that for us, for Ms. Rochfort's request. So similar, but just for our small rural communities. Wonderful. Thank you for that. We'll now go to Mrs. Block, and then Ms. Khalid, and then we'll finish up with Ms. Goudreau.
Oh, I'm sorry. I always get this order mixed up at the end of a round, so please forgive me. Mr. Jacques, last week we heard testimony from the Treasury Board that departments didn't have to hand over their savings plans because, quote, details were still being finalized. You testified today that your powers to request information are honored in some circumstances, such as the Build Canada homes, but that in regards to the Defence Investment Agency, those documents were refused, even though parliamentarians were asked to approve a budget which allocates funding for it. In a previous meeting, you testified, and we all understand that you are here to serve parliamentarians and that our work is impeded when your work can't be done. Section 79.4 of the Parliament of Canada Act, as we discussed at that meeting, allows the PBO free and timely access to any information under the control of a department or parent crown, and yet I believe there are still a number of departments that have not complied with your request for information so that you can do your work in serving parliamentarians. So on that basis, Chair, I am going to table the following motion, and I believe it's being sent to the clerk right now, and it will read as follows. That the committee order the production of all documents required to satisfy the Parliamentary Budget Officer's information requests 852, 859, 860, 861, 862, and 864, provided that A, these documents shall be I, deposited with the clerk of the committee within 1 week of the adoption of this order, and 2, kept in confidence by the clerk and made accessible only to the Parliamentary Budget Officer and his staff, and B, if the Parliamentary Budget Officer is not satisfied that the documents were produced as ordered, he shall promptly notify the chair and the clerk, who in turn shall prepare a report to the House, which the chair shall table forthwith, outlining the material facts of the matter. I'm moving it right now.
Order. And just to clarify, you're just asking for these documents to be given to the clerk in confidence, who will then deliver them to the PBO in confidence?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Ms. Khalid, then Ms. Suds, and then Ms. Goudreau.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering if we can perhaps suspend while we get the wording of the motion and we can look it over. I don't want to speak without actually looking at the words.
I think it's coming out now, so it's 12:04. We'll say 12:09. We'll come back. We're suspended for 5 minutes.
Okay. We are going to switch over to the SECU committee, which is the Public Safety and National Security. We've got the head of the CBSA there, which is Erin O'Gorman, and I'm sure you're familiar with her. We were just going to switch over on the hour, but I guess this committee is going to run longer than the hour it's scheduled for. So as soon as it's back, we'll come back to it.
Which brings me to cede the floor to Ms. Kirkland. Over to you.
Oh, they're leaving.
Chair. So I will not be long, I promise you. Just a quick reminder, the reason for my motion was to raise urgent concerns regarding systematic discrimination.
She's done already.
Procedural misconduct and lack of accountability at Canada Border Services Agency. So the findings come at a time when CBSA is seeking to hire thousands of new officers. The agency's credibility and the ability to provide a psychologically safe workplace needs to be addressed before expansion can legitimately proceed. Multiple former CBSA employees have come forward with serious allegations of systematic discrimination, procedural corruption, and retaliation within the agency's internal human resources and integrity processes. And really, we would just seek to cover three things: systematic discrimination against pregnant employees who go on maternity leave and mothers, as well as those with serious illness, manipulation and misuse of internal HR systems to justify discrimination, as well as the National Integrity Center of Expertise, NICE, internal investigation processes, and breach of confidentiality in investigations. And with that, I'll just say I think this should not be a partisan issue in any way. We want to make sure a workplace is safe for all of our officers, and if we want a safe border, we need a safe psychological place for our officers to work. And with that, I hope that we could potentially just move to vote to adopt this study. But of course, I will see if any of my colleagues wish to debate or have anything that they wish to say.
Merci, Madame Kirkland.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkland. Mr. Bellefeuille. Well, I think that the earlier vote tells the story, Mr. Chair. I certainly agree to carrying out this study, and I suggest that we move directly to a vote on the matter, given that Ms. Kirkland has explained in great detail the importance of the study she's proposing, the last day that we have in this session to carry out a study. So I call for a vote. A point of information.
So do you want me to read the study then? Because it's in the motion. How many meetings?
It's a minimum of 5.
May I? The reason a minimum of 5 is simply because of the amount of people that need to come before committee. I don't know that we would be able to accommodate them with less than 5 meetings.
Merci, Madame Kirkland.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkland. Any other comments, questions? That being the case, we will now proceed to the vote. And you asked, let's ask it again. Does the committee approve adopting this motion? Yes? Very well. Then the motion is carried. Mr. Bellefeuille. Very well. So I, too, Chair, would like to give notice of a motion, which I hope will be supported by the members of the committee. I think you all have a copy. I have it in both languages. I will provide it to the clerk to be shared with the MPs, that we carry out a study, a minimum of 2 meetings, to consider the material requirements due to the Canada-U.S. Border Action Plan for clearing material transported over the border, that we cover the technology at issue, and that we have experts appear before us, and that the committee report its observations and findings to the House. Mr. Chair, I'm trying through all means to discuss and study the matter of goods coming in through the ports along the St. Lawrence Seaway, the Great Lakes region, and we are unable to get the actual information, the details that would be provided by CBSA about how containers are handled. And I think that we could have the specialists at the ports come in and tell us about the clearance of containers at Canadian ports of entry. It would be very helpful to all members of the caucus who are not partisan and who have been studying maritime ports of entry. It would be very helpful to know a good deal more from CBSA about the clearance of containers. So I hope that my colleagues will support this motion. A short study that would help us make a real difference in the many
what's wrong with this
places across Canada that have small ports on the St. Lawrence Seaway and in the Great Lakes region. Thank you very much for this notion of motion. Ms. Bellefeuille. Mr. Caputo, you had your hand up?
I was out of order. I was going to seek to intervene, but the clerk mentioned to me that it's simply a notice of motion, and we're not debating the motion, which is correct. So I will give the floor to Ms. Conans, please.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No,
did I misinterpret?
I'd like to make a motion.
I just want to make sure that we all understand what's happening. Donc, Madame de Bellefeuille vient de...
Ms. Bellefeuille has just... No, it's not necessarily a notice of motion merely. I think this is a motion that I would like to have us vote on. It's not complicated. I'm pretty much supported by all, I believe. All right, so our process that we had carried in last June, adopted then, requires that notices of motion be presented at least 48 hours before we debate such motion. So, Ms. Bellefeuille, you have just provided us with a notice of motion. Our procedure then would suggest that we consider it in greater detail in a coming meeting.
Si on est dans les travaux de comité, le 48...
Very well, though, if we are in committee business, that 48 hours is not used. I know the procedure. Point of information.
Point of information?
Mr. Yes, we certainly would agree to that. We have no problem with this. Very well, then.
Okay, OGGO's back.
A reminder, everyone, I will announce who's the next speaker, but I'm not going to prod or push anyone after that. Ms. Khalid, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Now, my understanding is that the documents that were requested, that are in question here in this motion, were requested earlier this month, and I would ask through you, Chair, if I can perhaps ask our witnesses, as they're handily here today, to clarify how, is there like an impending deadline that is provided, or is it more of an open-ended system of getting documents, and have they received some of these documents yet, or has it been a complete blanket silence from the departments?
Yeah, you generally can't direct our questions to the witness when we are. I'm not participating or answering in this debate, but seeing as Mr. Jacques is here, colleagues, if we don't mind, we will skip our practice. Did you want to repeat the question?
Yes, thank you for the question. So we submitted information requests to 5 departments. The deadline was initially November 19th, and we did not receive any information from those 5 departments except for the Canada Food Inspection Agency. So we did receive some information from them.
Request the
I'm sorry,
information.
we are debating the motion. We're not going to allow, a back and forth.
Helpful for me to understand where this motion is coming from, Chair, and I think if that's okay.
One question. We don't question our witnesses when we are having a motion, but if it helps clarify, but just the once, please, and then we can move on.
So when was it that you had sent the information request, and how many documents were you anticipating as a result for your request?
Why didn't you ask this during your time?
The request was sent on November 5th, I believe, and we expected a response by the 19th. Regarding the number of documents, we provided a Excel template, a spreadsheet, with the fields to fill out. So we were expecting basically 5 Excel files with the requested information.
Thank you. That is very helpful for me to understand the context of this motion, Chair. I find it a little, I just hearing the testimony today with respect to documents that are shared between departments and the PBO. We heard that there were 10,000 pages worth of documents. We've heard, and over these past 10 years, me serving as a member of Parliament, just the volume of documents that are involved in this. So if a document request was made on November 5th with a deadline of November 19th, and, we talk about Excel files, well, quite frankly, my eyes usually glaze over when I look at an Excel file. But I would anticipate that this would be significant to double check, to make sure that the documents provided are accurate, to make sure that they are complete. So I'm a little bit troubled by the short deadline, and then also now with this motion to really, bring something about that I'm sure that these departments are already working on. I'm not sure if, again, as I will respect your advice there, Chair, and not ask any more follow-up questions of the witnesses, but I do wonder if there have been dates and timelines that have been provided to them with respect to when they can anticipate these documents. My challenges with this motion, quite frankly, is that I have already outlined based on the information that has been provided by the witnesses here today, which I really appreciate. The second piece of it is the subjective nature of what happens if the PBO is, quote unquote, not satisfied, and then all of a sudden it is the chair and the clerk that then decide what to do with this committee and how to proceed further. I don't think that is in the purview of the committee, and I think that
it is.
Perhaps that's an area that we can explore a little bit as to how to make sure that the entire committee is involved and engaged in whatever steps are taken by not just the chair and the clerk, but by all of us, ensuring the true nature and objective of the committee. I mean, 100%, we are here in this committee to hold government to account, to make sure that government spending is in purview of what our government has committed, and that it is transparent, it is open. So I understand why the PBO needs to conduct their business, but I also have concerns with respect to short timelines, and in the text of the motion, why is it that we're not quantifying, if I can say, what dissatisfaction looks like, and then also for the chair and the clerk to basically take over and decide what would happen in that very subjective
gross mischaracterization
assessment of the documents received, as indicated in the motion. I will park my comments there, Chair, but I do reserve the right to get back on the list. Thank you.
Ms. Sutz, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So as I review this motion, and admittedly, there's a number of different citations here with respect to requests for information. In fact, I think we have 6 different ones here, and not knowing what all 6 are actually for, which department they are targeted for. I'm struggling with understanding, again, the timelines, and my colleague was able to ask a few questions, so thank you for providing that. I would like to ask you more questions as far as when have they committed to get you answers back. Would be a relevant piece of information. My understanding is that there was a commitment to get back in December. It is December 2nd. So it would seem to me that there is certainly an element of effort and good faith put into the efforts to get these documents. I would also question just the timing of, obviously, the budget being tabled, the BIA, and if there is, some steps in progress, i.e. parliamentary process right now with respect to approvals of these items that might be hindering the ability to respond to some of the questioning in the requests for information. Again, not being privy to all the details or being able to direct questions, it does become difficult to be able to fully assess this motion. But I would like to, I believe, based on the information that I do have, that the work is underway and there is a commitment to get this information in December. It's December 2nd. I think we might be jumping the gun here, Chair.
Thanks, Ms. Gaudreau, then Mr. Patzer.
Tout d'abord, Monsieur le Président.
First, this can go on. Do we have resources after one?
OK. Bon, on va
Playing it
faire
by
comme
ear.
si on n'avait pas de...
So let's go as if we don't have resources after one, so we have to work fast. First, we have a duty to know. Second, I did not have November 19th here. Clearly, if 859, 860, 861, and 864 are necessary for the PBO, he must have them. When it said we've gotten 10,000 pages, we don't have a lot of time to do our work, it's a lot to do. It is unacceptable for me that before 2025, before Christmas, that the PBO can't work on that in order to get back to us because we still have questions. I hear my colleagues from across the way that are saying it's very short, just a week. And I'm open to negotiation, but what is non-negotiable is that these documents must be delivered. I also heard Part B. That might worry my colleagues. But if I may ask the question, if I can ask the PBO, if they do respect the deadline, well...
One, two, allow for yourself, and then similar courtesy to the Conservative side. And we do have considerable resources going up to QP today. So please go ahead.
Parfait. Mais on va trouver un entente.
Great. We'll find something to agree upon before. The documents mentioned in the motion at the moment, will that make the difference for you? Is that what you're missing? Yes. That is why we asked for the documents. There's a direct link between the government's proposals to significantly reduce their expenses and to cut 40,000 civil servants. There's a link between that and the government's efforts to respect the operational budget, to rather balance the operational budget within 3 years. So now that they're debating on the budget, well, those are necessary data points to have. Chair, I could submit a sub-amendment, but maybe we could discuss. Maybe my colleagues across the way have more information. Will it be okay in 2 weeks? So maybe we could just put a friendly amendment in and say that before December 24th, all the documents will be sent to the PBO. So that, let's say, on January 3rd, the work will have been done before we come back on the 25th. So I'm available until 2 p.m., but can we please show people that we can be transparent?
So you're putting forward an amendment. Where are you putting that in?
Je vais le faire, hein?
In within 2 weeks. So that means before Christmas.
To 2 weeks?
Exact. Je pense que tout le monde va être gagnant.
Okay, so we have an amendment there. Does anyone wish to speak on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Start a speaking list on the amendment. Mr. Patzer and then Ms. Rochefort.
Okay, I mean, I think we need to be clear about something here. This is the comprehensive expenditure review requests, right? So these were used in the budget, right? And it was used to inform the budget. These documents are complete. They exist. It's not like the departments have to create something. So, I mean, if the committee agrees to 2 weeks, so be it. 1 week seems reasonable to me as is because the documents all already exist. It's not like they're having to create new documents. The CERs, the request was put in 5 months ago for them to be issued by the government to find the cost savings, and that was used to inform the budget. Mm-hmm. That's the process by which the CERs were created, by which they were used. So it's not like we're asking the departments to reinvent the wheel here. The document exists. Get the document and table it. That's all that we're asking for here. So it should be pretty straightforward. It should be very easy. It should already be in a nice tidy file on a computer somewhere where they can just simply load it into an email or put it on a thumb drive, whatever is needed, and distribute it to the clerk. It wouldn't be hard to do. It would actually take a matter of minutes. And I don't know that we need to expand it to 2 weeks, but this is a very, very, very simple elementary, like kids are taught how to do this in grade 5. Like my kids all know how to do this. This is not a hard thing to do. And so giving the information to the clerk would be very simple for the departments to do. We're not asking them to extend themselves in a manner which is unreasonable to ask. This is a very simple click and drag and deliver. That's it. Mm-hmm. So I think 1 week is very reasonable. If the committee wants 2 weeks, I guess, I'm not going to say one way or the other, but I think 1 week is reasonable as it is.
Thank you. Ms. Rushworth.
We thank you, Mr. Chair. I would simply like to draw, I guess, the committee's attention to the letter that was issued in response to your comment, Mr. Patzer. And basically the letter reads, I just want to review it because I hadn't seen it for a while and I just read it. It says, thank you, it's written to Mr. Jacques. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me regarding your information request dated November 5th, 2025 on the planned savings from the comprehensive expenditure review by program and plan personnel reductions and details of potential service level impacts for the years 2026, 2027 to 2029 and 2030. While none of those requests are addressed to the Treasury Board Secretariat, having led the CER on behalf of the Secretariat, whose mandate includes people management across the public service, I felt compelled to reach out on behalf of my colleagues to inform you that we will not be able to provide the requested information within the timeline provided. As you know, proposed savings from the CER are subject to parliamentary approval. Once approved, they will be communicated to all relevant parties in a timely manner in accordance with the obligation of the employer to do so when an employee's position may be impacted. Circumventing this process by providing the information to a third party beforehand could compromise employees' trust in the government and jeopardize the management-union relationship. Moreover, as you can appreciate, personnel reductions have real consequences for people who serve their country and for their families. Releasing information before informing impacted employees could generate anxiety and uncertainty.
Point of order.
What? Sorry, we have a point of order.
I believe that everything that's in this letter was already brought to us by Mr. Ali last week. I don't think we need to repeat it over. I mean, we heard all those excuses last week.
We should actually be getting to the amendment and not the original motion. So the amendment is adding another week. If we could.
I do believe that it's important to read this letter into the record because it speaks directly to the timelines
right, but this
that
is,
are
we
being
are
discussed
debating
in
the amendment, not the original motion. So I really need to bring you back
It fits
to the
it's
amendment.
also in line with the amendment. I mean,
No, it's on the point of order.
There's one paragraph left. One paragraph left.
Let me interrupt here. I decide what's relevant for the point of order. It is not relevant to the amendment. We always allow very wide berth and wide latitude for debate. But we really should, this amendment is purely 1 week versus 2 weeks, not the reason behind or not the purpose of the letter. It's the 1 week versus 2 week. I ask everyone stick specifically to Ms. Gaudreau's amendment, or we will cut you off and move to the next speaker on the list on the amendment.
So, Mr. Chair, I conclude by saying once departments have had a chance to review decisions,
Sorry, we have a point of order. Ms. Jansen, please.
It seems that she's ignoring what has been said. She's attempting to reread something we already know.
Please, On the amendment, please. Otherwise, we'll have to skip to the next speaker.
Well, certainly the amendment is about providing the information, and this letter is about providing the information, provides data.
It is not relevant.
So
we have no one else on the speakers list, so we will. Okay. I'm going to remind for the last time. I call out who's on the list and who's next. It's up to you to put your name on. If not, we will go right to the vote. So, Ms. Khalid, and then I have. Okay. Ms. Suds, Ms. Khalid. On the amendment, if you do not speak to the amendment, we will move on to the next person speaking, and that's Ms. Suds, Ms. Khalid, Ms. Gaudreau. Go ahead, Ms. Suds, please. On the amendment.
On the amendment, thank you very much, Chair. Reflecting, obviously, as the letter was just read, and some context around the timelines that we are talking about right now. It was shared earlier, that the 10,000 plus documents that the government has produced with budget and all that it entails last month. And the context in which these departments have been asked to produce this information. I think it's also really important, as we just heard, to give consideration to the fact that we are talking about public servants' livelihood, about their positions.
Point of order, Chair.
Yeah, I was going to, I assume, relevance.
This is absolutely relevant to the timelines.
It is to the motion. The change from 1 week to
1
2
week
weeks.
to 2 weeks.
I'm sorry,
I'm aware.
I have the floor. Change from 1 week to 2 weeks does not address any issue regarding public servants' positions. That it's solely a 1 week to 2 week to provide extra time for the documents to be prepared. You're happy to continue this in the discussion on the motion, if it gets passed or not, but I have to ask, this is solely for a 1 week change, and if people cannot stick to that, then we'll move to the next speaker.
I am speaking to exactly that, Chair, and the context of having over 10,000 documents, of which our departments are in the or have produced and now are working through with respect to these information requests. Also of important context, that as they are moving forward with their review and with the necessary reductions that have been proposed, that these are sensitive items. And 1 week does make a difference in the life of a public servant if they are going to be put on notice with respect to their workforce adjustment. So respectfully, I think this is a very sensitive topic. It is time sensitive to the public servants who do incredible work each and every day serving Canadians. And I think we need to be sensitive to that reality.
Point of order.
Mr. Batzer?
I will also just note that the original motion says it will be kept in confidence by the clerk. We're not asking for this committee to make those documents public, so therefore nobody will be at risk of getting their termination notice by this committee and not their employer.
Thanks, Mr. Batzer. Continue, Ms. Suds.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yes, happily will continue. As I had said, we are dealing with a substantial amount of information, and I do believe strongly that the timelines under which these are provided are important. We want to ensure that the information that is provided is timely, is accurate, and I think there have been certainly arguments made and put forward by the departments that they need the time to do exactly that. I don't see the value of rushing something and not getting complete answers or a complete picture, which would help the parliamentary budgetary officer do the work which he is intending to do with this information. So respectfully, I think we need to, give reflection to the necessary time to ensure the quality of outputs that we receive.
Okay. It was already requested from November 5th to the 19th, so they already had 2 weeks. There's been 2 more weeks on top of that. And if we want to give them even another 2 weeks.
So we're talking about timelines as to when documents should be delivered by And then we're also, I mean, I know this speaks to the main motion about the quality of those documents as well. So for me, it would make more sense for us to say, you know what, let's not nickel and dime how many days and weeks we're going to give to departments to produce the documents that the PBO is requiring, although they have their own powers and their own ability to get the documents. I'm not sure why our committee needs to be involved in the first place. However, I think that perhaps if Madame Goudreau would be willing to assess, to say, you know what, like by the end of the year, 2 weeks from today, takes us to basically the week before Christmas anyway, and it would be, I think, generous, but also giving the benefit of the doubt to the public service and giving them the extra time. I doubt that the PBO will be working during Christmas days and into the new year. I hope that they'll take some time off and celebrate with their family and friends. And I think it would be more prudent for us to say by the end of this year. So I'm not sure if Madame Goudreau would take that as a friendly amendment to her amendment, to see if that's something that she would be willing to consider. I think it would be the best step forward, and so that we don't have to sit here and debate this till however long we are in this room. I'll stop there, but I reserve the right to get back on the list for the main motion.
We don't do sub-amendments. We are on the amendment. Ms. Gaudreau, which would have to withdraw and then submit a new one. Madame?
C'est la question qu'il faut se poser. Qui va travailler entre Noël et jour de l'an?
Well, who's going to work from here to the new year? Procrastination is something everyone does. If there hadn't been a budget table, well, you can't say documents if you haven't done your analysis yet. November 19th. I hope that even in the last 40 minutes, they've been rushing to try and prepare those documents. So that to say that the PBO will be resting is saying that the others will be working. No, we have 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we'll be done on the 11th. So they can work 24/7 if necessary, but please, it has to be done before the end of the before the end of the year. There's no argument that'll change the situation. I'm ready to move things around, but I think 2 weeks was already quite generous. And if the government does not agree, that means we're going to do overtime because they're not ready. That's not good. If they have the documents, they have 2 weeks, they have to produce the documents. They'll stay on the table for 2 weeks if necessary, and then the PBO can work starting January 7th, but it must be done. And I hope we'll be here till 1 and not until 2, because it's also the government's image. I don't want to get into partisanship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Block, and then Ms. Rochefort.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I begin, I'm wondering if it would be a good idea to release the Parliamentary Budget Officer and his team while we continue this debate on the motion.
Sure. But before we do, well, first of all, I agree. Thank you, Mr. Jacques and team, for being with us today. Before you go, though, perhaps we can weigh in just a couple quick questions. Is the data already available, in your opinion? Because we keep arguing back and forth about producing this information, but is it already available? And is it your intent, I know information is often released to you in confidence, is this going to be, and we hear a lot from the Treasury Board, well, we can't release it because people's lives are being affected. Is your report or anything going to address that specifically, or is it going to be a more data-driven report without such specifics? I think that would help us make a decision better here today.
Thank you for the question. So to the best of our knowledge, the data are available. The explanation provided to us is the explanation provided in the letter that was written by the Comptroller General, that the data are available, and at the same time, from the government side, there are administrative issues that prevent them from sharing it with us. I would also say, in terms of confidentiality, we do hold confidential data on a regular basis. Most notably in the case of national defense, we will analyze that data and then publish a report in aggregate without releasing or violating any of the confidentiality. In terms of the data being forecast and needing to be finalized, we receive regular updates of the defense capital plan from National Defense. That's a forecast. So numbers are always in flux. It's the budget itself, budget 2025, is in flux. And what, from our perspective, analyzing those figures, although they are subject to change, and they will change, because the numbers in budget 2025 will not be the numbers that people see in the public accounts once the Auditor General goes through and audits them. It certainly doesn't, from our perspective, change the context. I think the last thing, there was a comment made with respect to our ability to obtain the data and it not being the purview of the committee. We tried. So we tried, and under the Parliament of Canada Act, we decided that we would use a legislative mechanism under the Parliament of Canada Act that tells us to go to the Speaker of the House and the Senate. The Speaker of the House then in turn, I believe it was last week, then referred it back to parliamentarians. So what's happening here, to the best of our knowledge, from a legal standpoint, is precisely what should be happening under the Parliament of Canada Act. Parliamentarians weighing in on a determination on the part of the government that the data exist, they're pertinent to financial decision making, the Parliamentary Budget Officer should have access to the data, and the government has decided not to provide it to the Parliamentary Budget Officer working on behalf of parliamentarians.
Point of order, Chair.
Yep, sorry, Mr. Jacques. Go ahead.
Sorry, I do appreciate that very lengthy response from Mr. Jacques. I'm sure that it's very helpful. I'm also trying to understand how that plays in with the motion that we're discussing here. I mean, again, that we started this meeting.
It was in response to my questions.
100%. I don't think
not a point of order.
I don't think that was an answer to your question.
That's not a point of order. But it.
I mean, we're talking about relevance. We're debating a motion.
I'm sorry. I have the floor, Ms. Khalid. I would ask that you stop interrupting me.
Also interrupting you, Mr. Chair.
I have stated it's not a point of order.
Sure, I know.
And it was a response to my questions. Are you done with the answer, Mr. Jacques? Perfect. Well, Mr. Jacques and team, have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you, I guess, hopefully in the spring for sub-Cs. Thank you very much. We will go to Mrs. Block now, and then I have Ms. Rochefort.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would simply say this. On this side of the table, it's obvious that we believe the role of the Parliamentary Budget Officer is extremely important in ensuring that we as parliamentarians can do our work in holding the government to account and ensuring that Canadians are getting value for their money. Having said that, I would also say that we see moving from 1 week to 2 weeks as a friendly amendment to the motion that I put forward. Thank you.
Ms. Rochefort and then Mr. Gasparo.
I have no further comments. I'll leave my time to Mr. Gasparo.
To rush a government department to provide information, Chair, when it's not fully ready, isn't probably the best.
Point of order.
Sorry, excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, just want to clarify because Mr. Ali said that they were complete and that he was holding them until ASAP, which whatever that means. But he told us last week that they were ready.
I'm sorry, that's not a point of order. Go ahead, Mr. Gasparo.
No,
The minister told us they were ready
Okay.
last week.
That's not a point of order. It's back to Mr. Gasparo.
So when the documents are fully ready, then they can be provided. I don't think anyone is withholding them unduly, and no one is saying the documents will not be provided. It's just taking a period of time to get them to the actual to get them to the PBO. But no one is denying that the documents will be provided. So if we just give a little more time, the PBO will get them, and he'll be able to do his work. But no one's saying he will not get it. So is there some room there for some additional time?
On the amendment to change it from 1 week to 2 weeks.
Mr. Gasparo?
No.
Ms. Khalid? No. Madame Rochefort?
No.
Ms. Sudds?
No.
Ms. Bloch?
Oui.
Ms. Jensen? Yes. Mr. Padzer? Oui. Madame Gaudreau? Oui. Yeas pour 4, 4, and nays contre 4, 4.
I will say yes.
So
the amendment carries. So we're on to the amended motion. I have on my speaking list, I had Ms. Gaudreau, Mr. Patzer, Ms. Rochford, Ms. Khalid. And Ms. Sudds.
Je retire, je vais le replacer à la
We're
fin
on
de la
the-
liste.
I'll put my name at the end of the list.
Sorry, on the amended motion. It's back. I have you top of the speaking list.
Moi à la fin de cette liste-là, s'il vous plaît.
Sorry.
Mike.
Sorry. I have Mr. Patzer then.
Yeah, I'll just keep my remarks brief. I mean, Minister Ali came to this committee and said he had the documents. They're complete. The notice was given 5 months ago to create the documents. So departments have had 5 months to prepare this information. They've prepared it. It's complete. The minister said so himself last week here at this very committee. He's holding them. Ms. Rochefort, you're reading the reason they are holding it, which was the same excuse the minister gave. We just heard from Mr. Jacques about timely access to information, how he holds it in confidentiality. This motion, I'll just reiterate to members, says it goes confidentially to the clerk, only the clerk, not to any of the members of the committee, and then to the PBO. That's it, to be held in confidence. This is a sound motion, and I think that we can all support it. You wanted more time, you got more time, you voted against adding more time, which I found interesting, but nevertheless, this is a pretty straightforward motion. Like I said, it's the Treasury Board minister actually is the one that's holding the information and not releasing it. These individual departments have actually fulfilled the CERs, and it's the TBS minister that has the information. So, like I said earlier, it's a click and drag exercise onto a thumb drive, off to the PBO, done. It should take all of 30 seconds to do it. Thank you.
Ms. Rochefort, then Ms. Khalid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I simply want to come back to very basic information that was provided. Basically, in the letter, it was quoted that once departments have had a chance to review the decisions, update their plans where relevant, and once the budget has received the support of Parliament, implementation, including workforce changes, will begin in a transparent and respectful manner. And this is the key line here. Back to Mr. Patzer, this will ensure that we are providing you and your office with accurate and reliable information. That's what this committee wants, is accurate and reliable information, and they promised to do so by early December. So that's why I say there should be no timeline. The timeline is in that letter. It is reasonable, and I very much in favor of this letter that was provided. Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Khalid, then Ms. Sudds.
Yeah, we don't have the French then. We don't have the French yet, but you can probably move it from the floor, right? Thank you, Chair. Just trying to figure out why, again, I take the points that Mr. Patzer has made that the documents in question will be held in the strictest confidence with the clerk. And I also take the points that Mr. Jacques had mentioned that that he wasn't able to access the documents based on some administrative challenges, as his words, not mine. Sorry, I try my level best not to speak over anybody, and I would appreciate if I would be given that same courtesy, Chair. So my understanding with this is that
Selves, but please continue.
Oh my God. She's such a little child.
Thank you, Chair. So my understanding with this motion is that we are trying to get speedy access, quote unquote, to the Parliamentary Budget Office for the listed documents as are enumerated in the motion. And then the motion goes on to say that, well, if the PBO is not satisfied with the quality of the documents, which none of us as committee members will have the opportunity to review, then he can go to the chair and the clerk for remedy. Now, my thinking is that if that is the case, then I think it should be a decision made by the entire committee, not just by the chair and the clerk, because we are a committee of parliamentarians representing all parties in the House, where we make decisions. I would hope that we would make them more on a consensus based. And I think that it would be prudent for us to consider that if we are going to be overstepping our purview as a committee, that we make sure that we're involving all members of the committee in making such decisions, because when somebody is saying that they are not satisfied with documents, that it's a very subjective approach, and as a committee, I think it would be best served if we set aside perhaps some time, if the PBO does come back to say that he's not satisfied, that we set aside some time to discuss the reasons why he's not satisfied. I'll park my comments there, Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Gaudreau, please.
Very much, Chair. And listening to my colleague here and the line of thinking around the reporting back piece of the Parliamentary Budgetary Officer, I think it would be prudent, if you will, if there was a concern, that those concerns came back to committee. If it is this committee, ourselves as parliamentarians who are helping to facilitate, ensure that these documents are received, then I think we are best suited then to then hear the outcome from the Parliamentary Budgetary Officer as to what he received and whether he is satisfied with the documents that he has received. So having said that, Chair, I would like to put forward hopefully a friendly amendment to the amended motion, simply to say that, reading as it is, but as we come to Part B, modifying it to read that if the Parliamentary Budget Officer is not satisfied that the documents were produced as ordered, he will promptly notify the chair and the clerk, who in turn will ensure that the committee set aside time to discuss next steps.
Everyone clear on that? Do you actually have in writing you want to send to the clerk and then forward out, or are we clear?
A minute, but we can do that, yes.
Yeah, please. We'll just start a speaking order with Mr. Patzer on it while Ms. Sudds prepares that for us.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I find that to be a very interesting amendment to the motion, because I think essentially what it does is write into the motion that the government will have the opportunity to just filibuster out the rest of the session out of our meetings on that if the parliamentary budget officer says that the documents were incomplete or, heaven forbid, redacted, right? I mean, we know that the government loves redacted documents and loves to send them out, right? So this is nothing more than just programming in a filibuster for the Liberals to make sure that the information is not fully released if they don't want it to be. And it's nothing more than that. So I just put that on the record for Canadians to understand that all this is just writing in a filibuster. That's all.
Great. Ms. Goodrow, are you going to send that to the clerk? Thanks.
Oh my, Chair. As we say in Quebec, it's, well, you tried your best. Who am I to judge if it's good or not, those documents? We have to see if the documents have been sent over, if they're what has been asked for, and if the person receiving the documents is satisfied with them. Does he have what he needs to do his work? I've asked a dozen times, and he's saying it's coming, it's coming. This suggestion is like saying, oh, we can't forget before we leave for Christmas, because it was obvious it was coming, it was on the way. We're just focusing on it so that it gets done. Otherwise, if we add time onto our report, well, I have déjà vu. What are we afraid of? Do they want to hide things? So if we stretch that time out, I'm not interested in not having transparency. It's just a reminder that in 2 weeks, the PBO needs his documents so he can do his work. It's confidential, and bada bing, bada boom. We'll send the PBO the information he needs. So no.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull up the copy of the motion itself and what the amendment will do. So the amendment as tabled right now is speaking to specifically Section B of the motion, where it says, if the Parliamentary Budget Officer is not satisfied that the documents were produced as ordered, he shall promptly notify the Chair and the Clerk, who in turn shall prepare a report to the House, which the Chair shall table forthwith, outlining the material facts of the matter. I think all that this motion, this amendment is trying to do is to say, hey, OGGO, the mighty OGGO, we don't just have a chair and a clerk, we have lots and lots of members from all parties in this committee, and we try to make sure that we're making the decisions together. You know, as per my conversations with many of you that are willing to have conversations, I try my level best to be collaborative, to find solutions. I do want to clarify for all members on this committee that we don't represent the government here in this committee. I know I certainly don't. I am here to fulfill the objectives of this committee, to ensure that there is transparency, and that we are able to do our jobs and hold the government to account in terms of the amounts that are spent. We know that this year has been a little unprecedented based on when the budget was tabled, with a real, I think, mix-up, and I'm sure that our public service and bureaucrats felt it a little bit more than we did in terms of how numbers were put together, data sets being a little bit different given the time of year, et cetera. So, I mean, just going back to the facts, is that November 5th, as per the PBO, they made a request with a deadline of November 19 of, I believe it's five different departments. And then on November 19th, not having received it, and as per the admission of the PBO themselves, they said that it was due to administrative challenges that they were not able to receive it. And when we don't know the extent of communications with the relevant departments in terms of, whether the departments are working on it or are they outright refusing to provide the information, as I have expressed, I find this motion to be a little preemptive. However, if that is the consensus that we are trying to build in this committee, then I think that we should definitely be supporting this amendment to say, instead of the subjective, I don't even know how you would analyze whether somebody is satisfied with documents or not. Is it based on a quantitative list of documents? Is it based on the quality of the documents? Is it based on, that person looked at me wrong? We don't know what the satisfaction rate would be. Is it on a scale? Is it a yes or no? So I would really like to really, I think, expand this to the entire committee instead of just to the chair and the clerk and the PBO, because I think that we should all factor in, all of us, as to what satisfaction or dissatisfaction looks like, what those parameters are. And I appreciate that the motion takes into account the confidential nature of the documents and that it will be only the clerk that looks at it. However, I do believe that, as we talk about accountability and transparency, I believe that all public office holders should be held to that same level of transparency and accountability. And if the Parliamentary Budget Officer presents himself as somebody who is not satisfied with the documents received, then I think the committee has a right to know why he was not satisfied or what were the parameters under which his satisfaction level would have been met. So I do support this amendment because I think it is more inclusionary and really brings the committee as a whole with respect to enforcing and reinforcing the transparency objectives of this committee, the accountability objectives of this committee, and hopefully the inclusionary objectives of this committee as well. So, Chair, I through you would encourage members to support this this amendment because I think it is one that is healthy and one that includes the entire committee. Not making partisan hay out of something. I think it's better for us to all be included in making those decisions. I'll park my comments, Chair, there, but I do reserve the right to get back on the list.
Mr. Gasparo.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify something for the record, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Patzer knows I have a great deal of respect for him. I have the quote that the minister, a direct quote from the minister when he was at committee and when he was asked the question that you referred to, Mr. Patzer. And his direct quote was, "I will provide you with the information as soon as possible." We have finalized that. That was the direct quote. So there was no specific timeline provided when. No, but I'm just saying that,
Okay,
you.
it's Mr. Gasparo's floor, please.
No, but I'm just saying, when you raised your point of order, Mr. Patzer, you said there was a timeline provided by the minister, and that's not completely accurate. And I just want to correct it. I just want to correct it for the record. That's all I'm saying.
Briefly, go ahead.
All I said suggested was that the documents were complete. I did not say that there was a specific timeline associated with it. So please don't put words in my mouth. Thank you.
I am judging. When you're chair, you can decide, but you're not. It's not a point of order. Mr. Gasparo has the floor. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say, Chair. Thank you.
I have Ms. Suds, then Ms. Rochefort.
Thank you, Chair. So as I'm listening to the debate and I'm reflecting on OGGO and, the mandate of the work that we do here, and I think OGGO exists precisely to examine government operations, examine public spending, estimates, departmental work, performance. And, I think if the PBO receives insufficient information from departments, that is squarely within OGGO's oversight role. OGGO is Parliament's primary forum for examining government operations, and it should be the first body that is informed of any difficulties so that it can exercise our oversight capabilities or responsibilities appropriately. I would also argue that it ensures natural or fairness for departments, if you will. So if the PBO goes directly to Parliament or to the Speaker, departments may not, or may appear, I should say, to be non-compliant without necessarily having had the opportunity to substantiate or explain the rationale behind any delays. I think it's an important point to raise and important for them to be able to address any concerns. And I think OGGO provides a venue to hear both sides of that before we need to escalate to Parliament. I would also say that it avoids coming to OGGO and us doing the work that we are mandated to do here, avoids unnecessary escalations and potentially misunderstandings from the public. So going straight to Parliament elevates the issue immediately to the parliamentary privilege level, really, but it could be unnecessarily. So OGGO gives us the opportunity to seek clarifications, gives us an opportunity for hopefully constructive dialogue, gives us an opportunity to resolve these issues, and also, frankly, to depoliticize discussion before it becomes a larger parliamentary matter. So I think most information issues can be resolved here at this table with OGGO without needing to escalate to the House, which protects Parliament from unnecessarily privileged disputes and preserves our focus on substantive oversight. I would also point that
sorry, let me just interrupt you for a second. The email's gone out from the clerk with the wording. Sorry, please go ahead, Ms. Suds.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as I was saying, I think there's a number of very valid reasons why OGGO is the primary and should be the body which would be a forum for resolving any sort of issue if the Parliamentary Budget Officer was not satisfied. Having said that, I think we're happy to let this amendment go to a vote and to move the following amendment.
We can't. We're debating the amendment.
Debating the amendment. So apologies, Chair. I'm multitasking, as I'm sure you can appreciate.
No, we can't.
Let me just finish off, if I may, with one additional thought, and that is that this forum and OGGO, I think, gives us as parliamentarians sitting on this committee an ability to get early warnings, if you will, if we feel like departments are delaying, if information is incomplete, if there are problems. The committee has the ability to call witnesses, to interact with the parliamentary budget officer, to ensure that documents are provided, to ensure that the parliamentary budget officer is able to do his work. And that is entirely, I think, the approach that we should be taking, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Ms. Rochford, then Mr. Patzer.
I would really like, Mr. Chair, to thank my colleague for such a great overview of the mandate of OGGO and very comprehensive in terms of in view of this discussion that we're having today. I thought that was just excellent. For me, I just want to make sure that I understand where we're at in our debate. And if I may I just want to reread, if I can, the motion just to make sure I want to make sure that that's where we're at this point in time.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm not sure we're dealing with the amendment to the motion.
Okay, so we're ready then to take it to a vote. Thank you.
To time, I have Mr. Patzer.
Pardon me,
Even Gasparo's like, guys, just
we
stop
still have
talking.
our colleague that just stepped out for one moment, and so if I understand correctly, this motion will have two parts. And is that correct? There is the first part.
Ms. Rochford, I'm going to interrupt you. We're dealing with the amendment. Okay, the amendment. We're not playing around games with what the motion is. We're on the amendment brought in by your member. So.
So I still have the floor. Pardon me, just a second. So I'm clear on terms of the. So basically.
Holy crap! She doesn't even know what she's
on the amendment
supposed to be talking about.
On the so basically, there is a motion that has been amended by my colleague, Mrs. Suds, and
we're debating the amendment.
We're debating the amendment at this point, and so.
Even Gasparo's like, just shut up and get to a vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Call the vote, Mr. Clerk.
Speaking
Call the vote. Yep.
How do you make $230,000 a year?
My hand was up, Chair.
Okay,
Oh
the vote's
my
been
God.
Called. Ms. Rochford
Oh my
said
God.
go to the vote. I called the vote with the clerk. There's no point of orders.
Mr. Gasparo?
The vote started.
Mr. Gasparo?
Yeah. On the, yes.
Just on the amendment.
Yes.
Not the amended motion, on the amendment.
Madame Rochefort?
Yay.
Ms. Suds?
Yay.
Ms. Bloch?
No.
Ms. Jensen?
No.
Mr. Padzer?
No.
Et puis Madame Gaudreau?
No.
Okay, yeas pour 3, and nays contre 4, 4.
Okay, the amendment's defeated. We're back to the amended motion, which is the original, but stating 2 weeks.
And Khalid dropped the ball by walking out of the
I have a
room.
speaking list for that. Are we ready to go to a vote on that? Go to the vote.
Mr. Gasparo?
On the amended motion.
On the amended motion.
We didn't even have a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
I said the speaking list was exhausted. I asked for speakers. No one said anything. We went to the amendment vote. There's no point of orders during a vote. Please continue with the vote, clerk.
Mr. Gasparo?
No.
On the amended motion.
No.
Ms. Khalid?
I'm sorry, colleagues. We're having the vote. You can comment afterwards, please.
Ms. Khalid?
I took a health break. I would like to know what I'm voting on.
We're voting on the motion as amended.
And the amendments are
The one amended by Ms.
Oh my God, go back to
Gaudreau.
bed.
So that's what we're voting on right now.
Okay, and the amendment that Ms. Suds had passed did not.
Did not pass. Please continue with the vote, sir.
Ms. Khalid?
I vote no.
Madame Rochefort?
No.
Ms. Suds?
No.
Ms. Bloch?
Yes.
Ms. Jensen?
Yes.
Mr. Padzer?
Yes.
Madame Gaudreau?
Oui.
Oh, yeas pour 4-4 and nays contre 4-4.
Yes. Yep, the motion passes as amended. Colleagues, we have last days today, or perhaps Thursday, to vote on the Sup Bs because it requires 3 sitting days before the last supply date. The clerk has sent out the votes for the Sup Bs. If we can have unanimous consent, we'll group them all together in one vote. Okay. And shall the votes combined carry on division? On division. And shall we report the estimates to the House? Yes. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Okay. I'm so glad when we get stuff like that where liberals spend 20, 30, 40 minutes going on and on about this and that and whining, and then they put an amendment to a motion and they lose. And then it just goes to the original motion, they vote on it, and they just wasted 45 minutes talking about absolutely nothing because it made no difference. They just wanted to get their 2 cents out there, and their 2 cents made no difference to the way. Like, this could have been done an hour ago. And I just love it when they get all heat and hotted and, oh, but what about this? But what about our right as committee members? And Khalid talking about how she's not part of the government, but she's in the government, and doesn't matter. You walked out of the room and didn't even help your committee members on the amendment to Sud's amendment. And then she comes back, she's like, wait, what am I even doing? It's like, go back to sleep. Get out of here. I've put the link. Oh, Sherry. Shit. That's not the link. Sorry. I've put the link in chat a few times, but I'm going to go and put it in again. We got question period in just a little over half an hour. We've got Carney coming in. We've got Pierre coming in. So we're going to go ahead and take a little bit of a break until question period. Where's the link? Sorry, my apologies. There it is again. There's the link in chat for question period. And I will see you guys shortly. It should be a pretty good question period today. I imagine Carney will be in today and tomorrow. I know for a fact he's in today, but I imagine he'll also be in tomorrow, and then that's probably him for the week. He might not even show up next week either, so this will probably be one of the last times we see him for the year. So let's go ahead and take a break, and I'll see you guys for a question period. Before we go, I did say in chat, but thank you so much, OrtCloud, for the super chats. Thank you so much, Raven, for the super chat. Thank you so much, A True Canadian, for the gifted memberships. OrtCloud sticking a part of the club as well, and Kelly for the super chat. Really appreciate you guys. And there's the link again, and I'll see you guys shortly. Clip swore. I know. Sorry, the committee got a little bit heated. It actually got me a bit heated too. So, and I'm usually quite cordial, but all right. See you guys soon.